Parents say their child was attacked on a school bus by her own bus driver, and it was all caught on camera. We want to warn you tonight, the video that you're about to see is disturbing. It shows the bus driver handling an 8-year-old girl diagnosed with autism.
It was a normal sunny day in August 1971 when everything changed for the Highsmith family.
A 3-year-old little girl flown to Children's Hospital ICU after her family says she was abused by her babysitter.
Melissa, a 21-month-old baby girl, was living with her mother in Fort Worth, Texas.
Is facing charges in the death of a Pasco County child that was hit by a train. This has been under investigation since the tragedy happened about a month ago.
Her mom, Alta Apantenko, was a hardworking woman and needed someone to look after Melissa while she worked. She posted an ad in the local newspaper looking for a babysitter. Soon, a woman responded to the ad. She sounded kind and trustworthy on the phone. Alta agreed to let the woman pick up Melissa from her roommate, since she had to go to work. The woman showed up, took baby Melissa in her arms, and simply walked away. That was the last time the family saw their little girl. No phone calls, no ransom note, nothing. Melissa was gone, just like that. The family searched everywhere. Police were involved, news spread quickly, but there were no strong leads. People began calling the woman the fake babysitter because she had never given her real name. Melissa's disappearance left a huge hole in her family's heart. Days turned into weeks, then months, and eventually years. But her mother never gave up hope. Every year on Melissa's birthday, Alta would cry and wonder where her baby girl had gone and who had taken her. Fake sitter. The woman who took Melissa seemed like an ordinary babysitter. She spoke gently, promised to care for the child, and didn't raise any red flags, at least not at first. She told Alta she had experience with children and needed the job badly. Alta, desperate and trusting, allowed her to pick Melissa up from the apartment, even though they had never met in person. It was a decision that would haunt her forever. No one thought of asking for the woman's full name or ID. There were no background checks in those days. The woman arrived wearing white gloves, sunglasses, and a scarf over her hair, almost like she didn't want to be recognized. She walked out with baby Melissa in her arms, and from that moment, she disappeared without a trace. The Highsmith family later realized the babysitter had used a fake name and contact number. The number she gave stopped working soon after the abduction. It became clear. This woman never intended to babysit. She came with a plan to steal a child and vanish. People couldn't understand how someone could do something so cruel. The police called it a kidnapping, but with so little evidence and no cameras at the time, they had very few clues to go on. The fake sitter had fooled everyone and left nothing behind. Cold trail. As days turned into weeks, the investigation into Melissa's disappearance began to lose momentum. The police did their best at first, interviewing witnesses, checking nearby homes, and trying to trace the fake babysitter's phone call. But it all led nowhere. With no surveillance cameras, no fingerprints, and no real name to follow, the case quickly went cold. Flyers with Melissa's picture were put up all over Texas. Her mother, Alta, appeared on TV and in newspapers, pleading for her daughter's safe return. But there were no solid leads. Tips came in from all over the country, but none of them led to Melissa. Some people even claimed to have seen her, but every lead ended in disappointment. Years passed. The world moved on, but the Highsmith family didn't. They never stopped looking. They kept old photos, shared her story every year, and hoped that maybe, just maybe, Melissa would come back. But hope was all they had. By the time Melissa turned 10, most people believed she might never be found. The case was still open, but it felt forgotten. The pain of not knowing where she was or if she was okay continued to haunt her family. They were living with a mystery that had no end, until one day, decades later, everything would change. Families fight. Even though the case had gone cold, Melissa's family never gave up. Her mother, Alta, carried guilt for years, blaming herself for trusting the wrong person. Every birthday, every holiday, every moment of silence reminded them of the little girl who vanished. But instead of giving in to the pain, the Highsmiths turned it into purpose. They were determined to find her, no matter how long it took. Over the years, the family created posters, joined missing persons networks, and followed every possible lead. They even hired private investigators when police stopped following the case. Melissa's siblings, who grew up without knowing their sister, also got involved. They believed she was still out there, somewhere. As DNA technology improved, the family submitted their genetic information to online databases like Ancestry and 23andMe, hoping for a match. They knew it was a long shot, but it was their last hope. They'd also created a Facebook page dedicated to Melissa, sharing old photos and updates, keeping her memory alive in the public eye. The family's fight wasn't just about finding Melissa. It was about love, loyalty, and never giving up. Their belief in her survival became the only light in the darkness, and after 51 years, that unshakable hope would finally lead them to the truth. DNA breakthrough. In late 2022, something incredible happened, something that would finally change everything. One of Melissa's siblings had submitted their DNA to a public database months earlier, hoping for a miracle. And that came a match. A woman living in South Carolina showed up as a strong DNA connection. Her name was Melanie, but the DNA said otherwise. She was Melissa Highsmith. At first, it was hard to believe. Could this really be her? The family reached out cautiously, not wanting to scare her or make any wrong assumptions. But after several conversations, photos were exchanged, and the resemblance was undeniable. Melissa had the same smile, the same eyes. It was her. The final confirmation came with another DNA test, this time from Melissa herself. The results were 100% clear. After 51 long years, she had been found. Melissa was shocked. She had grown up thinking she was someone else, raised by the woman who had taken her. She had no idea she'd been kidnapped as a baby. The news changed everything she thought she knew about her life. But it also brought answers she never had. For the Highsmith family, it was a moment of pure emotion. The DNA breakthrough had finally solved a mystery that haunted them for half a century. Emotional reunion. When Melissa met her real family for the first time in over 51 years, it was like watching a miracle unfold. The moment she walked through the door, her mother Alta broke down in tears. Melissa had grown into a woman with her own life, memories, and identity. But in her mother's eyes, she was still a baby she lost all those years ago. The reunion was filled with hugs, tears, and disbelief. Melissa's siblings embraced her tightly, overwhelmed with emotion. They had dreamed of this moment for decades, unsure if it would ever come. And now the sister they never got to grow up with was finally standing before them, real and alive. Melissa, too, was emotional. Everything she thought she knew about her life had suddenly shifted. But even with the shock, she felt a deep connection to this family she had never known. Her heart recognized the love that had been waiting for her all along. The family held a small celebration with photos, music, and memories. Old baby pictures of Melissa were placed next to recent ones. It was a moment of healing, of closure, and of new beginnings. After more than 5 decades of pain, confusion, and unanswered questions, the Highsmith family was whole again. Hidden truth. After the reunion, the truth about Melissa's past slowly began to unfold. The woman who had taken her in 1971 wasn't just a kind stranger. She was a kidnapper who had lived a lie for over 5 decades. She had raised Melissa as her own, giving her a new name, a new home, and a life built on deception. Melissa had grown up believing the woman was her real mother. There were no signs, no confessions, just a quiet, normal life. But behind the scenes, the truth was buried deep. The woman never told Melissa where she came from or why. She had no birth certificate or hospital records. Melissa always felt like something was off, but she couldn't explain it. Once the DNA results came out, everything made sense. Melissa realized her entire life had been built on a hidden truth, one that had stolen her from her real family and kept her in the dark for 51 years. The woman who took her has not faced legal consequences yet, due to the complicated nature of the case and the time that has passed. But for the Highsmiths, what mattered most was finally knowing the truth. After years of pain, they now had answers, and Melissa finally had her real identity back. The hidden truth was out, and a new chapter had begun.